In this video, we're going to be talking about exponential functions and their growth or decay factors and their growth or decay rates. So in your notes, at the bottom of your exponential growth and decay notes, you should see this growth factor and decay factor information. So growth factor is the quantity 1 plus r, where r equals the growth rate. And this is the same as b. So what we have when we have a growth factor is that b equals 1 plus r. Okay. So then our decay factor is when we have a decay, the quantity 1 minus r, where r is the decay rate. So when we have a decay, b equals 1 minus r. And you saw this in the examples of the word problems for exponential growth and decay. So if we look at these examples here, I want to figure out if each one is a growth or decay, and then from there I can figure out the factor and the rate. So on this first one, y equals 3 times 0.75 raised to the x. The b is what's being raised to the x power, so here it's 0.75. So since 0.75 is less than 1, so b is less than 1, that means we have a decay. So we can figure out the decay factor as well as the decay rate. Okay, so the factor is the same as b. So what's being raised to the x power. So if we want our decay factor and we want to write it as a decimal, it's just 0.75. Okay, when you're asked for decay rate, you want to give that as a percent most of the time. It should tell you. So decay rate, well, look right here. Okay, the decay factor b equals 1 minus r, where r is the decay rate. So we could say that b equals 1 minus r. Well, b is 0.75. So 0.75 equals 1 minus r. Then we just solve for r, solving equations. So we could subtract 1 from both sides. And we get negative 0.25 equals negative r. We want that r to be positive. Right now it's being multiplied by a negative 1. So if we divide both sides by negative 1, we get r equals 0.25. So then if we want to write that as a percent, go ahead and move your decimal so that we have 25%. So that was an example of decay. Now if we look at y equals 3 times 2 to the x, if we want to figure out if it's a growth or a decay, we look at what's being raised to the x. So 2 is being raised to the x. 2 is greater than 1, so we have a growth. So we can figure out the growth factor and the growth rate, and we will write that as a percent. Okay, the growth factor is what's being raised to the x. So the growth factor is 2. The growth rate, well, since it's a growth, b equals 1 plus r. So b, which is 2, equals 1 plus r. So subtract 1 from both sides. 1 equals r. If we want to write that as a percent, we would have 100%. Okay, really quickly, if we have y equals 3 times 1 minus 0.5 raised to the x, we still are saying the same thing here, even though it looks different. Okay, this actually wrote it out for us. This decay factor, it's in 1 minus r form. So if we take 1 minus 0.5, our b value is still going to be less than 1, so we would have a decay. So it tells us what the decay rate is, since we have that 1 minus r. Here is our decay rate. So if we want to write it as a percent, we would have 50%. And then if you want to find the decay factor, you would just take 1 minus 0.5, so 0.5.